So it's me, Kacha, as always, and today I'm sat in my living room. Why is it? Do you know, I just did my hair last night, and I'm just gonna move back, and I keep forgetting that I have a massive forehead, and so what that means is that I shouldn't be allowed basically to do like middle parts, but I keep forgetting. And you know, because I do my hair myself, like I was hoping it was gonna like fall on my face, but then look at me, for goodness sake, just look at me. My head is just like my hair. That's not the point of this video. The aim of this video is to talk about this book that I just read for February, which is called Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. I think that's how you say her last name. This book is when I was done reading this book, I'm not gonna lie, I needed a break. I literally was just like, I couldn't explain why I was feeling like so much unrest within myself, and then when I was done, I was just like, I am exhausted. Like I felt like I've been dragged through like years and centuries of like just pure black struggle. So this book is like the scene is set in Ghana. So it's Ghana, what year was this now? Hold on a second. 1775. Thank you very much. So it started around 1775, so a long time ago. It's like pre-colonial Ghana. The book is a tale of two sisters. It goes through like, I don't know if you can see this, it goes through like the genealogy of that's one sister there and the other sister there, that's both of the dads. And so it makes it like really good to follow. So they go through each chapter, not chapter, like there's a little section for each one of these and telling their stories in the book. So basically the two sisters, the first sister is called Efia and the second sister is called Essie. So Efia was born and raised in Ghana. Both of them were born and raised in Ghana. At the time, Ghana as we know it, I'm going to keep referring to it as Ghana because I keep forgetting which one is which. Is one Asante and one is Fante, and I'm just gonna keep getting it mixed up because I'm not familiar with the tribes. But hey, the first sister is called Efia. She's known as Efia the Beauty. The book starts off describing her problematic relationship with her mother because her mom used to beat her. Her mom basically, the pictures we're painting was like she had basically like a kind of like a wicked mother, even though the book didn't really say that. So wicked mother and everything, and at that point it kind of grew into how she developed into a woman, which was another thing I found really interesting in this book, how at the time women were 16-year-olds and they were getting married to like 35, 40-year-olds. So yeah, the story continues how she had a crush on this guy. The guy ended up having the first wife, the second wife, and she was hoping to be his third wife. But then her mother had a different plan for her, her wicked mother, right? Her wicked mother had a different plan for her and wanted her to get married to someone else. I'm not sure what the intent for that was, or why her mother didn't really want her to get married to the guy, because the guy that she liked that had 3 wives ended up being like a really important person in the village, right? Okay, so she her mother, because the reason why she wasn't married to the guy yet because she hadn't seen her period, so she couldn't be classed as a woman technically, even though seeing your period doesn't make you a woman, you're still a girl. But hey, never mind. And meanwhile, yes, when she did eventually get her period, her wicked mother managed to kind of like cunningly get her married to this British slave trader at the time. So now the situation with the British slave traders in Ghana in the book, or in the plot there as we know it, in their particular tribe, in Efia's tribe, was that there was a castle somewhere over from the village, which is where the British slave traders were staying, and so yeah, that was where Efia got married to a British slave trader, and so she started living in the castle herself. Her husband, what was her husband's name? Is it James Collins? Yeah, she hated him when she first got married to him. He couldn't speak a word of Fante, I think it's Fante. Yeah, he couldn't speak a word of the language anyway, and then she couldn't speak any English. Her dad was also not happy with the whole arrangement. She was basically daddy's girl. She was daddy's girl. Her dad loved her. So she's living with the guy. Their relationship obviously start off rough, but then she eventually gets into like she started liking the guy more in little things. He was really kind to her. He was really kind to her. What was interesting was that he had a family in England. And then okay, he had a family in England. He had 2 kids, and she knew about these 2 kids. But it was, I think, quite a lot of things that really bugged me about the whole situation happening in the book is that people were just very accepting of things. It's like he had but then again, she was used to that. She was used to being married to men that already had wives, and that was normal for them. But then it wasn't for the British, and she knew that, but she didn't really question, she didn't really ask him about his family, she didn't really question anything. She was just like, oh, okay. But basically, yeah, underneath the castle was a dungeon where they kept all the slaves, who they'd obviously bought over and waiting to be shipped over to the US or wherever islands or wherever they were sending these slaves to. And what was interesting was that Effie knew about the dungeon. She hadn't seen the dungeon because her husband, she kind of talked about in the book how her husband would come back, and she could see like the mental effects it was having on him, because like I think the way the book described it, that he looked like he'd seen ghosts. And she knew that these were basically due to the fact that he was slave trading her own people. And it's like she had that understanding, but she was just like, it was really weird. I was just like, why wasn't she questioning? So that's her story up until the point where she had a baby, and the baby's name was Key. And now on the other side, her sister, right? So Effie's dad and her wicked mother basically had a son, and this son, she was just used to the fact that she had a brother. However, on the other side was a story of a girl called Essie. And she was also a daddy's girl. She didn't like her mom. Not that she didn't like her mom, she respected her mom, but her mom wasn't as, I think the way they painted it, as fun as her dad. Her mom was very quiet and very like, very like moral, and always had like a moral outlook of things and that kind of jazz. And that's the kind of feeling I got from her, right? Because basically the book explained that her mom used to be a slave, and her mom had gotten raped as a slave. The setting of the whole book in this stage was about basically just wars, and people were fighting these people, and these people were getting the people that lost their, obviously, what do you call them now when you win over a land? The people that stay over. I can't even remember. But yeah, basically you you have a war or fire battle, you win, and then you take their people as slaves. Basically that was happening. So it was kind of like a really interesting period. But her mom had been a slave before, but now married to her dad who was called Big Man Asari. So her dad was, I think he was also a chief or some type of really important person in the village. And one really key moment in this book was when they needed a house girl. Basically, they were like, these chores are getting too much in this house. Please let us go and get house girl. So, but her mom was very hesitant about getting a house girl because she, like I said, she had always had this moral outlook about things. So just like, but her husband, Big Man Asari, managed to convince her to get a house girl who was obviously going to be a slave. So now there's just been a war, and people come back with the slaves, and there was a slave auction, obviously in their village there, and the slaves were getting, yeah. Anyway, they basically saw the slave girl, and her mother was like, okay, I'm going to take that one as my house help. And so her mom was basically, because her mom had been a slave before, her mom was treating the slave like basically like her own child, which is a bit weird at the time. Big Man, Essie's dad, was complaining that his wife was treating the slave a bit too nice, and so because of that, the slave wasn't doing her duties per se, you know, that kind of situation. And so basically got to a point where I can't remember what she did, but she didn't do a task properly. It's been a while since I read the book now. She didn't do a task properly, so Big Man was very angry. So he basically called the whole town people, I think maybe people just around the local community there, and kind of like made a decision about like, this girl cannot do anything in this house. So he was basically like, he gave her a bucket of water to carry from one end, from somewhere here to somewhere there. Basically a length of, kind of like a length that people could see. Like if one drop of, obviously this is a book, right? So I didn't actually see that. This is how it looked in my head. It was like, if basically one drop of water comes from that bucket, you're going to hear it today. You're going to hear it. So basically that's how it was. So he was mad that she wasn't doing her job properly as a house girl. So the girl basically, she was doing, and she was, I think the way the book painted her, she was such a little girl, but she was doing so well. She was like going all the way down, and then I think it was on her way back that a little drop of water dropped. He was like, hey. Essie's mom, who was obviously the moral person, she had sung. She was literally praying in her mind that he would forgive, but he didn't. They beat her senseless. And when the whole thing happened, the whole beating, her mom was so mad at Essie. Like, how dare you? You're meant to know better. You're meant to treat people better. And I was all here for Essie's mom. You're meant to treat people better, you know. Yeah. So when the girl had been beaten and everything, Essie started feeling so bad that, hey, you know, because of me, obviously this girl's not been beat. Obviously knowing her mom's, where her mom's coming from, like from someone who's come from like that kind of situation. Basically, she just felt really bad. So she basically went and told the house girl that, hey, you know, we haven't really started on a good path, but if there's anything that I can do to make it up to you, please let me know, blah 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 blah. And the house help was like, my dad too, you think your dad is a big man? My dad is a big man too, blah 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 blah. The house help basically told Essie that if you want to help me, basically send a word to someone, basically to her village, that she's here. This is where the book started to get a bit messy, right? That she's here. So Essie didn't tell her father that she was going to send this message, didn't tell anyone. She basically, just to make the girl happy, sent a word to some townspeople saying this girl is here. Next thing you know, the scene happened. The book went to a place where there was people were invading their village, because, and it was obviously that it was this house girl's father, because the house girl, her father was a big man from another community. So you take another big man picking, you must hear it. So yeah, her father, the house girl's father, was invading the land. Next thing you know, chaos. And then Essie, I think it was in the middle of the night, so Essie woke up going to meet her mom, like, mom, let's go, let's run, like so much chaos. And her mom was like, me? I ain't going nowhere. Her mom was like, I am not going anywhere. I am going to stay here. I am not moving. So basically, her mom was like, I'm tired of running. I've been a slave before, been there, done that. I'm not moving. I'm not doing nothing. I'm not moving anywhere. And I think the house girl's father, they were setting everywhere on fire. So that's the way they kind of painted the situation, that the room was basically on fire. So her mom was like, yeah, I'm not going. Her mom gave her a black stone, saying, take this with you, and go. Just make sure you run, make sure you hide, make sure no one sees you, make sure, yeah, get to there. But see me, I'm going to stay here. So yeah, that's kind of how the whole situation evolved. So there she was with her black stone running, and she got caught. I think that's quite obvious. She had settled outside, but she got caught by the village people who had invaded and who were now going to what? Take them as slaves. You see what they say in this life about how you treat people? See, she has started at big man Pekin, and now she's now a slave. So you have to treat people nice, because you never know where you're going to what? You never know where you're going to end up. So yeah, that's the story of her. So when I think I need to read the book again, because I struggled to understand how the whole, I didn't get like a clear picture of how Essie is Effie's sister. Does it mean that Effie's dad was the person who raped Essie's mom and is now, yeah, now gave her, and now took the baby Effie and let the mother go? I don't know how that situation happened, but yeah. But I forgot to add this little detail, that when Effie's wicked mother, right, was giving her away to the British slave trader, she gave her a stone. And for me, I was like, oh my god, because at the time I didn't know that this wasn't her mom, right? I was like, oh my god, it's so cute. She gave her a stone, and maybe she now finally likes her because she's getting married, I don't know. But she gave her a stone. So that stone that Effie's wicked mother gave her, and the same stone that Essie's actual mother, who refused to run away, gave her, was now how the story made sense, that they were both sisters. But somewhere back to Effie, when Effie's dad was really ill and dying, and her brother basically sent word to her saying dad is dying. And it was when how Effie knew that she had a sister, was when she came there. Her brother told her that, you know, this woman isn't really your mother, right? You know, like, my mother isn't your mother, like, that's why she's always hated you. Effie was basically like kind of like the bastard child in a way. So yeah, that was really interesting. So now these two sisters, one has been captured as a slave, and the story then unfolds into her journey as a slave, and it breaks my heart so much. Honestly, it's literally, it's not nice. It's really not nice. She went into the dungeon, which was underneath where Effie, you know, was having sex with her husband, basically. And I think what was really interesting was, you see how numb Effie was to the whole situation, and how she was just like, people have been slave traded, and people are underneath this dungeon that my husband is selling, but does it, yeah, okay, it's happening. But I think what I thought when I was reading the book is that, now knowing that she had a sister, would she have done anything if she basically like realized that my sister is basically underneath this castle they're living in? Who knows? But yeah, Essie got sold into slavery, and just how they were explaining the dungeon, you know, being stacked on top of people and all that kind of jazz. There was a lot of stories of like rape, the British slave traders just coming into the room, obviously where the women's dungeon were, picking a lady and doing basically whatever he wanted with her, and then putting her back into the pile of shit that she was literally shit that they were living in. And then yeah, they kind of, yeah, it kind of went through the story. So that was Essie. Essie had a child called Ness, and Ness's story broke my heart. It's just basically I think her story was one of where she was really stubborn. She was really stubborn, and but she was stubborn because her mom was stubborn. Her mom Essie was very stubborn, and then she basically, when she was so at some point, this is in the US, she was married to this other slave who was really stubborn as well, and she had a child for him. They didn't have a happy life. They were slaves. Let's not get carried away. But they were living through it. But then they were like, we don't want to give birth to a child in this situation. Next thing you know, they met a woman who said that she was basically going to help them escape, truthfully. And then started making plans and everything. She was pregnant, they were making plans. When she just given birth to the baby, I'm not sure how, maybe like it felt like the baby was still like an infant, really young, like a month, 2 months, 3 months, less than a year basically. They decided to escape, and when they escaped, everything was fine. The plan, they were like in this jungle somewhere, hiding and planning their route and everything, because they had a really bad, evil master. It was like the way the book described him, he was literally, I was like feeling scared. But basically the guys started coming after them, looking for them, and the book was describing how you could hear the dogs just basically smelling and sniffing around, and that was how they knew that shit went south. And so basically Ness and Sam were like, okay, they give her their newborn child to this woman and said run, and then they stayed back and they got caught. But how the book kind of went back and forth in the story was because where she was now, her new master was apparently nice, and that's the way the book explained it. If you can have anything like that, it was a lot nicer. I didn't really beat them. They did their work, end the story, had food to eat, but they were still slaves. But yeah, she was meant to be a house slave, but she couldn't because of how many scars she had from the beating they got when the man found, well, when her old slave trader caught her. So yeah, that was really interesting. Yeah, so she basically yeah, they ended her story there. They didn't really go with what happened to her. She obviously probably died at some point. So yeah, the baby now, who this woman had run away with, the woman basically talked a lot of good stuff about her parents and explained the situation, how this is how I became your mother, because she was now looking after this young child. And it's just like the longing the boy had for his parents, and obviously not knowing who his parents were, just knowing of their stories. But yeah, they were living a fairly good life. He had now, I think they had moved into a part, like the year and time where people could now, they were slowly trying to end slave trade. It wasn't obviously working quite well. And so yeah, I think he had a fake certificate of, you know, when you become free, I don't know what you call that, yeah, freedom certificate, I don't know. But basically he had a fake one, because he wasn't freeborn. It's just he wasn't a slave either, because his parents were slaves, but he wasn't free. I don't know if that makes sense. So he wasn't technically owned by anyone. Yeah, so he was a ship maker, and he always used to make ships and that. And how his mom thought it was bad luck that he was making ships that were going to be used to bring slaves back. And yeah, that was interesting. But he had a couple of kids, and he named each of his child after ABC, like each letter started with ABC, and then they got to the point where I don't know if you know about like the Great Migration in the US, where basically they were said, I can't even remember what it was, but this was the first time I'd heard about this, because I don't know much about black history in the US, but basically about the Great Migration, where people were moving from either north to south or south to north, I can't remember, but one of them, because it's just been this new decree of and basically people who were not really like freeborn, where their lives were at stake. And even if you were freeborn, you could obviously always be mistaken for someone who was, because you don't have a mark on your head saying I'm freeborn. So yeah, they started basically living the time of fear, and this guy's wife, Anna, she was pregnant with a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the 8th child, and the baby's name, obviously because they've been keeping the trend, right, was going to be called H something, so Henry, I don't know, entire name. And so yeah, but basically what happened to her was she got kidnapped, like maybe when she was like 8 months pregnant, and she refused to give birth to her child as a slave, because she got kidnapped. I think she got kidnapped by white men, who obviously were trying to make her into, yeah, whatever. So she refused. She was like, I'm not going to give birth to my child in this kind of pain. So she killed herself. And it was heartbreaking to see what her husband went through looking for her. It's just, you just need to read it. That was just so heartbreaking. But then yeah, you go on from her, and then H himself went through a lot of situation, and the book talks about the whole convicts. There's a formal word for it, like basically they were set in convicts. So if you couldn't like pay your bail, you would like be sold to do some work, and it's just ridiculous. I think he owed $5. No, he owed $10, but he only had $5. And for $10 or $5 difference, he worked 10 years in the coal mines, which was disgusting. But yeah, he worked there 10 years, and this is H now, the new child. Who had now been born. The interesting thing is I think her mom thought that when she killed herself, her child was going to die, but they basically had to tear the child out of her because the child was still living inside of her. So yeah, he then went on to have he had a wife after he had done his whole serving as a convict, which was really interesting. He had a child called Josephine, who was the love of his life. And I think it's really interesting because H was a really strong guy. I think they called him Two Shovel because of like how much, I think it's really interesting. Two Shovel, what was it, Two Shovel again? Because I think he basically was like digging 2 shovel out of the coal mine, something like that for someone. So he was really, really strong. When the book they were explaining how they were saying his child had turned him soft, which I thought was so sweet, because I love seeing girls who have like really like good relationships with their dad. And she got into this guy. The guy's name was Robert, and they were so in love, Will and Robert. It was really weird because it's interesting how the book explains that he was basically white, but he wasn't. So I think he was one of those like mixed race people who were like literally almost like white. Because I remember in the book how she was asking him like, are you white? Are you not? Like what? So yeah, but they were absolutely in love. And yeah, her dad died, H, the shovel guy, and he died because I think he died a lot younger because of all the stuff he'd been inhaling in the coal mines, which they were talking about in the book, and how it killed a lot of people because you're inhaling this stuff, you're digging out coal without any kind of protection on you. So yeah, most of the men around that period were short-lived. But just to backtrack again, when he kind of got out of the whole thing and he served his 10 years, it was interesting how he was now a convict, and he wasn't just black, he was a convict. So even in like black environments, like the black people there would look at him with his cars and go, ooh, that kind of thing. And it's really interesting how even though they were still in a situation where they needed to stick together because they were being oppressed by obviously the white society, they were still divided within themselves. And I think that's still something that happens up until today. But yeah, they basically he moved to an area that was white and black mixed, and it was called Pratt City. I think this is actually a real story, a real place. It's called Pratt City, which is where basically people from the mines, white and black, any race, would just basically just stay there together because they needed to be together. And I think that was interesting how still is interesting, because when you have a common goal with someone regardless of race, it brings unity. So having something that brought them together was just, it wasn't really like a racially divided society, and they made a little home for themselves and where they live together. But still what was interesting was that H, still on H, he joined this group or union or something like that, and which had black and white people obviously together because it was a mixed community. But then it was interesting how even though the black convicts were there as convicts, like the difference in the crime that they'd done. So there was one instance where they asked one of the white guys, we're all convicts, but what have you done? And the guy had killed someone, but H and the other guys who were there just owed people $5. So, and I think even up until today, it's something in the US, speaking in the US, it's something that still happens where like we see it on telly all the time, and like white people will do like something, this huge crime, like kill someone, and they wouldn't really get as much sentence, and then a black person would basically smoke weed and then probably get like 5 years in prison. So yeah, that was something interesting that I think is still valid up until this day. So yeah, back to H's child, Willie, who was now with kind of mixed whitish guy. They basically, when H died, they moved to New York, and this for me was the part of the book that basically just broke me. I was just mentally like, I just can't, and I actually cried. So yeah, Will got herself into some deep shit because her husband, oh my god, her husband is an asshole. Like the thing is, he was such a nice guy. He wasn't, she was wild. She was a bit wild, and they explain in the book how wild she was. She was like go-getter kind of thing. She was an amazing singer. She loved to sing. And but what happened was, when they moved to New York was no longer like Pratt City. There was a lot of segregation, and black and white was two things. It was still very racist, unlike her hometown. So that wasn't something she was ready for. So she had big dreams. She was like, I'm going to New York. I am going to be a jazz singer, you know. But then that dream was cut short. One of the interesting parts of the book is when she and her husband were going out to look for jobs. They had a child at that point, and they leave the child at home. His name is what was his name again? Carson, but they called him Sonny. They would go together to shops, and basically, because he was white and then she was visibly like a dark-skinned black girl, they would kind of be like, no, we don't, is that your wife? You marry a black woman? No. They basically, yeah, so they had to learn really quickly to look for jobs separately, because yeah, it wasn't just working. And even when her husband got a job, it took her like 3 more months every single day going out to look for jobs before she got her own job. She ended up finding a job as a cleaner in a jazz place. It's interesting how she went there to say, I can sing, let me audition, and the guy was like, no, you're too black. And this was a black guy telling her this, so she was too black. So yeah, her husband had fit into society completely, and he got his own job, doing his own thing. She was working as a cleaner in this jazz place. And one situation that happened that really was quite sad was when she didn't know what her husband did. She just knew whatever job he was doing. Yeah, another thing where I was talking about women just accepting things and not asking questions like, why are you people not talking in me? So yeah, she'd accepted it, and her husband would go nights without coming back home. What happened, one situation where this was at the jazz club where she was now a cleaner, she went into cleaner room, and then she noticed the guy wearing a suit all nice up, and she basically looked at him, and that was her husband. And she was like, wait a minute. And then 2 other white guys came in, and they were like, oh, you know this girl? And then he was like, no, she's just cleaner, she's just leaving. Excuse me, what did you say? She was a cleaner, she's just leaving. And she was like, okay, this is very interesting. Basically, they realized that the 2 white friends realized that he knew the girl. They weren't sure if they were married or anything, but they knew that Rob, her husband, they didn't know they were husband, but that he knew her. And so they basically made him, they didn't make him do anything, but he basically raped her in front of the 2 men. He raped her in front of the 2 men, and I lost it. I completely lost it, because he was trying to please his friends, and his friends were like, yeah, I don't understand. I didn't even want to understand what happened there. I was just like, no, that's no, no. But yeah, she left him just that day, packed her bag, packed her son, and just ran. And it's so sad, because her son, most of the times when she'd be out cleaning the jazz club, was sleeping on his own and kind of raising himself. And so yeah, Willie ended up seeing another guy in church, but the guy was a drunk and would take her money and run away and everything. But yeah, later on, her son, Sonny, now grew up, and he quit his job and decided to start working at the bar. By the bar, he then met this girl. He met this girl who was an artist, and he liked her whole essence. But basically she was a druggie, and he started sleeping with the girl. She was now his girlfriend and everything, and he basically was living in the drug house. And so yeah, this was in Harlem. And this is why I said the book, for such a small book, like it goes through a lot of things about like the drug. This is the 80s, this is Harlem, this is the drug situation in Harlem in the 80s. And this was obviously their own story. And so yeah, he would always go back to his mom's house as a druggie, and pretend to be clean. So his mom would give him money. One of these days when he came to his mom's house to clean up, and his druggy chick had told him, yeah, you need to go to your man's house, you know, we need some money. We could do with some money right now. that was terrible. Basically telling me you could do with some money, go and pretend to be nice to your mother to get her, give you some money so we can buy drugs and a bit of food. And he went to her mom's house, and his mom's house, and all this time his mom never really told him about his dad. When we'd ask about his dad, she'd be like, you ain't got no daddy. And on this one day, he had a sister, by the way. Really had another child with the other second guy that she had that left her as well. Or she left, I can't remember the station. But yeah, her sister, it got to a point where he was such a druggie, his sister used to be scared of him. But yeah, the sister, she had a child. She'd gone out to get some food, and he was sitting in the living room with his mother, and his mom started telling him about his dad, and telling him explaining the whole situation to him, and that was what broke him. And she told him some words. She told him, she was like, she basically took some money out of her bra, dropped it on the table, and said, this is what you came for. You came for, you know, you want some money, you don't care about your family, you want some money to go back to your drugs. Here is the money you came for. Take it and go if that's what you're gonna do. And that one day he actually stayed. He stayed, and he became clean. He basically started working on himself, and he had, I think there's a medication you need to take every time for you to kind of wean off the addiction. So he was taking that all his life. But he had now had a child with this druggy girl called Marcus, and Marcus was doing remarkably well. He didn't grow up his mom. I think that's why he ended up being a good person. Well, not a good person, he ended up being sane. Okay, he had a PhD. No, he was doing a PhD at what university? Stanford, something like that. He was doing really well, and at uni he met this girl at a party, and what was really interesting is she was Ghanaian, and she had a father who was born and raised in Ghana as well, who had moved there with his wife. Her dad had a lot of scars, her dad had a lot of scars because his mom almost burnt him alive when he was a child. His mom used to have trouble sleeping, and she would see things in the middle of the night, and she would sleepwalk. And on one of those occasions, she sleepwalked and burnt her whole house down. And her kids were sleeping, and she had 3 kids, and he was the only one who survived because his dad could only save one of his kids, and his dad saved him, which was the youngest one, his son. But yeah, and that's why he had the scars. And his mother was possessed, basically. That's really the biggest way. I'm sorry if you're not superstitious, but she was possessed, okay? She was possessed by a woman, and this woman, she's called the Fire Woman. And that Fire Woman was the woman in the beginning of the story who was refused to leave a room, who was sat there and told her child Essie to go, and that, you know, I'm tired of running. And that was the Fire Woman that was possessing her. So I could trace it back again to the genealogy of this girl, back onto Effia the Beauty, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let you read the story for yourself. But it goes through the whole slavery situation in Ghana, how it started getting really, really weird and really, really strange, and the British obviously started depending a lot on you know, Ghana providing them with slaves, and Ghanaians were sick of it, and it ended up being a case where it was by force and by fire, and they got to a point where they were exiling their kings, and they basically, everyone now, not just the people who were selling slaves, everyone was a slave in their own land. And that kind of bred and led into colonialism, and the whole thing was just a massive mess. But yeah, that's the book, guys. Most other people involved in the slave trade, they were all men. Women were just sat down and sitting at home and giving birth to kids. And I was like, I feel like it may have had a different outcome, or a different decisions made if it was women, because I feel like women definitely have a different way of thinking. And this is real history, up to a point where they now exiled one of the kings in the land, and it was basically the women that said, are you men going to be sitting down and let these Igbo people come, and let these Obroni people come and take your land away from you? So it's women that riled up and got the men to go and fight. They lost because it was really late at the time they decided to fight. They lost, but the women riled them up to go and fight. And I think because the men had been in bed with these British slave traders, it was now really messy. You know, being in a really bad relationship, being in an abusive relationship where you can't even, you know, your partner is killing you and your partner is bad, but you can't speak up because you feel like you've allowed it to happen. And that's how I feel in the situation. But yeah, it's based off of real life, not real life stories, but like real life events. The whole situation with the exile of the king was very true. Prati was very true. The North migration in the US, very true. Yeah, the whole convict selling thing was very true. So this book is amazing. I hope you guys go buy your copy and read it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely day. Bye.